The arrival. Dr. Melorn floated serenely in his private meditation pod, his translucent blue skin pulsing with bioluminescent patterns as he reviewed the latest medical journal from the Galactic Medical Coalition. His three primary eyes scanned the holographic display while his secondary sensory tendrils gently waved in the nutrient-rich solution surrounding him. As the foremost xenobiologist from the aquatic world of Valsis, Melorn had dedicated his 217 cycles to understanding the diverse biological systems of the galaxy's countless species. The peaceful silence of his pod was interrupted by an urgent communication pulse. Melorn's skin flashed in annoyance as he accepted the transmission. "Esteemed Dr. Melorn," came the bubbling voice of his assistant, Trail. "The Council requests your immediate presence. The humans have arrived." Melorn's patterns shifted to bright yellow surprise. The humans, they weren't expected for another 12 cycles. "Their vessels move faster than our projections suggested," Trail replied. "They await you in the grand reception chamber." Melorn quickly exited his pod, his body automatically forming a hydrobubble around himself as he moved through the dry corridors of the Interspecies Medical Institute. His mind raced with excitement and apprehension. Humans were one of the newest species to join the galactic community, and what little was known about them was both fascinating and alarming. The grand reception chamber had been filled halfway with water to accommodate both Valsian and human delegates. Melorn observed the humans as he entered, strange bipedal creatures with rigid exoskeletons and peculiar protrusions on their faces. They wore artificial coverings and carried devices that allowed them to breathe underwater. 5 of them stood at the center of the chamber, surrounded by the floating forms of the Valsian High Council. "Dr. Melorn," announced Council Elder Vethes, "may I present Captain Alina Reyes of the Earth Alliance and her medical delegation." The central human stepped forward, removing her breathing apparatus as she emerged from the water section. "Dr. Melorn, your reputation spans across star systems. It's an honor to meet you." Melorn pulsed a formal greeting pattern. "The honor is mine, Captain Rice. Your species has accomplished remarkable feats in a remarkably short evolutionary timeframe." Captain Rice smiled, a gesture Melorn had studied, but still found peculiar. "We're adaptable, if nothing else. That's partly why we're here." Elder Vethes interjected. "The humans have made an unprecedented proposal, Dr. Melorn. They wish to establish a medical exchange program. More specifically," Captain Rice continued, "we would like to invite you to Earth as our first extraterrestrial resident physician. Your expertise in comparative xenobiology could help us make significant advances in medical science." Melorn's skin rippled with shock patterns. Earth was classified as a Class 9 Deathworld, a planet with gravity, atmospheric composition, radiation levels, and biological systems that were hostile to most non-native life forms. No Valsian had ever visited such a planet, let alone lived there. "I appreciate the invitation," Melorn responded carefully, "but Earth's environment would be extremely hazardous for my physiological systems." Dr. Aisha Kapoor, identified by her name tag as the human delegation's chief medical officer, stepped forward. "We've developed specialized environmental systems for your stay, Dr. Melorn. A fully aquatic living quarters that replicates Valsian conditions, and an advanced mobile hydrosuit for when you need to move around our facilities." She gestured, and one of the other humans activated a holographic display showing detailed schematics of the proposed accommodations and protective systems. Melorn studied the designs, impressed by their thoroughness. "You've put considerable effort into this proposal. The potential benefits outweigh the challenges," Captain Rice said. "Your understanding of over 300 species' biological systems could revolutionize our approach to medicine, and perhaps you might find human physiology interesting to study." Interesting was an understatement. Humans were evolutionary anomalies, endurance predators with redundant systems, remarkable regenerative capabilities, and inexplicable resistance to toxins that would kill most sentient species. They had evolved on a planet that should have eliminated them a dozen times over. The council members drifted closer, their skin patterns revealing their eagerness. Malorn understood the political implications immediately. An alliance with humans could significantly elevate Valsys's standing in the galactic community. How long would this exchange last? Malorn asked. Initially, 1 Earth year, Dr. Kapoor replied. Approximately 0.8 Valsian cycles. Malorn's patterns shifted thoughtfully. The professional opportunity was unprecedented. No xenobiologist had ever had extended access to study humans in their native environment. The data he could collect, the discoveries he might make, it was too tempting to refuse. "I accept your invitation," he announced, surprising even himself with his decisiveness. The preparations for Malorn's journey to Earth moved with startling speed. Human efficiency was not exaggerated, he discovered. Within 20 rotations, he found himself aboard the Earth vessel Hippocrates, a medical research ship specially modified to accommodate his biological needs. Dr. Kapoor personally oversaw his acclimation to the ship. "The journey to Earth will take approximately 2 weeks," she explained as she showed him his aquatic quarters. "We'll use this time to gradually adjust the environment to closer match Earth conditions. This should help minimize the shock when we arrive." Malorn floated in his tank, examining the elaborate filtration and atmospheric regulation systems. "A sensible approach. I've reviewed the medical literature your people provided. Human biological resilience is remarkable, but your medicine still seems quite invasive." Kapoor smiled. "We've had to be creative, given our biology. We don't naturally regenerate like some species, so we've developed technological solutions instead." "Your prosthetics are ingenious," Malorn admitted, "though I'm curious why you haven't advanced further with genetic solutions." "Historical and ethical complications," Kapoor said, her expression changing subtly. "We're still working through them." The journey gave Malorn time to study human behavior up close. He observed their strange sleep cycles, their constant consumption of diverse foods, and their peculiar social dynamics. They laughed often, a vocal expression of amusement that had no equivalent in Valsian communication. They touched each other casually, a shocking breach of personal space by Valsian standards. And they never stopped talking, sharing information constantly. Most puzzling of all was their resilience. When a minor power fluctuation caused elevated radiation levels in one section of the ship, the human crew member exposed simply took medication and continued working. A Valsian would have been severely ill from the same exposure. As they approached Earth, Malorn was fitted with his mobile hydrosuit, an extraordinary device that maintained his aquatic environment while allowing him to move in Earth's atmosphere. It regulated temperature, filtered toxins, and adjusted pressure constantly, all while monitoring his biological functions. "It's not our most elegant design," engineer Aiko Chen apologized as she made final adjustments, "but it's the most comprehensive life support system we've ever built." The first sight of Earth through the viewport left Malorn speechless. The swirling blue-white planet looked serene from orbit, belying its deadly nature. Clouds swept across vast oceans, green and brown landmasses stretched beneath them, and the thin layer of atmosphere glowed softly in the sunlight. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Captain Rice said, joining him at the viewport. "Deceptively so," Malorn replied. "The water alone would dissolve my outer membrane in seconds." Rice nodded. "Earth shaped us to survive its challenges. We forget sometimes how hostile it can be to other life forms." The descent to the United Medical Institute in Geneva was smooth, but Malorn felt the increasing gravity like a weight pressing on his entire body. By the time they landed, he was struggling to maintain his normal shape even within his hydrosuit. A delegation of human officials waited to greet him as he emerged from the ship. Dr. Kapoor stayed close, monitoring his vitals through a linked device. "Welcome to Earth, Dr. Malorn," said a distinguished older human who introduced himself as the World Health Director. "Your presence here marks a historic moment in interspecies cooperation." Malorn was about to respond when alarms suddenly blared across the landing facility. Human security personnel began moving rapidly, touching devices in their ears and speaking urgently. "There's been an accident at the experimental physics laboratory," Captain Rice explained, her expression grave. "Multiple casualties, unknown contaminant involved." Dr. Kapoor was already receiving details through her communication device: radiation burns, unknown particulate exposure, and some kind of molecular destabilization in the victim's tissues. The World Health Director turned to Melorn. "Dr. Melorn, I understand you've only just arrived, but your expertise might be vital. Would you be willing to consult on this emergency?" Melorn's patterns shifted to determination. "I came to Earth to share knowledge and help advance medical science. Take me to the patients." The Emergency Response Center was chaos by Valsian standards. Humans rushing in all directions, loud voices calling out information, wounded being brought in on mobile platforms. Melorn struggled to process the sensory overload while fighting against Earth's crushing gravity. Dr. Kapoor guided him to the most severely affected patient, a young female researcher whose skin displayed alarming discoloration and whose body readings showed cellular degradation unlike anything in human medical records. "The particulate seems to be causing a cascading breakdown at the molecular level," one human doctor explained. "Nothing in our treatment protocols is slowing it." Melorn studied the readings, his scientific mind already formulating hypotheses. "This pattern resembles Custovian molecular decay. Show me the particulate composition." When the analysis appeared on the screen, Melorn immediately recognized elements similar to a rare condition he had treated on a mining colony near the galactic core. "I need access to your pharmaceutical synthesizers," he said quickly, "and samples of the following human proteins." He transmitted the list to their systems. For the next 6 hours, Melorn worked alongside the human medical team, developing a counteragent to stabilize the molecular degradation. The Earth gravity strained his body painfully. The constant movement exhausted him, and twice his hydrosuit needed emergency recalibration. But he continued working. When the first patient's condition finally stabilized, the human medical staff erupted in cheers. By the end of the day, all 17 affected researchers were responding to treatment, their cellular degradation halted. Melorn, however, was barely conscious. The strain of Earth's environment, despite his protective systems, had taken a severe toll. As his vision began to darken, he was vaguely aware of Dr. Kapoor calling for emergency transport to his aquatic chambers. His last thought before losing consciousness was that humans were even more remarkable than he had believed, not just for surviving their death world, but for thriving on it. Adaptation and understanding. Melorn regained consciousness gradually, first becoming aware of the comforting pressure of water around him, then the familiar sensations of his own bioelectric patterns stabilizing. He opened his primary eyes to find himself in his aquatic chamber at the United Medical Institute, the water carefully calibrated to match Valsian optimal conditions. Dr. Kapoor's face appeared at the viewing panel. "Welcome back, Dr. Melorn. You've been unconscious for approximately 36 Earth hours." Melorn's skin flickered with patterns of distress and embarrassment. "A poor beginning to my tenure on Earth, I fear." "On the contrary," Kapoor replied, "you saved 17 lives before your body even adjusted to our gravity." The director called it the most impressive first day in medical history. Melorn drifted closer to the viewing panel. "The patients, they recovered." "Completely. Your counteragent not only stopped the degradation but reversed it. We've been studying the compound you created. It's unlike anything in our pharmacology." Despite his physical discomfort, Melorn felt a surge of professional satisfaction. The molecular structure was inspired by a natural enzyme produced by deep-sea creatures on Valsis. Our bodies create it to repair damage from volcanic vent toxins. Kapoor's eyes widened. "That's fascinating. Earth has similar deep-sea creatures that have evolved extraordinary repair mechanisms." "Convergent evolution," Melorn noted. "Perhaps not surprising given the similar selective pressures." Over the next several weeks, Melorn gradually adapted to Earth's conditions. His specially designed hydrosuit was modified repeatedly based on his feedback, each iteration allowing him greater mobility and comfort. He began consulting on complex medical cases throughout the institute, his unique perspective often revealing solutions that human doctors had overlooked. The humans, for their part, proved to be excellent students, absorbing his knowledge with remarkable speed. What they lacked in evolutionary advantages, they compensated for with technology and sheer determination. Dr. Melorn was particularly impressed by human surgical techniques. Without natural regenerative abilities, humans had developed astonishingly precise methods for physically repairing their bodies. During one demonstration surgery, Melorn watched in amazement as surgeons reconnected severed neural pathways in a patient's spinal cord, a procedure that would be unnecessary on many worlds with regenerative species. "You've turned your evolutionary weaknesses into strengths," he told Dr. Kapoor afterward. "Instead of evolving natural solutions, you've created artificial ones that can be improved upon with each generation." Kapoor seemed pleased by his observation. Necessity drives innovation. We couldn't wait millions of years for evolution to fix our problems. One morning, 3 months into his stay on Earth, Melorn was analyzing tissue samples when an emergency alert sounded throughout the facility. Dr. Kapoor rushed into his laboratory, her expression grave. "We have a situation," she said. "A research vessel in the North Atlantic has encountered an unknown biological agent. 30 crew members are showing severe neurological symptoms, and it's spreading rapidly." "Have they been quarantined?" Melorn asked, already moving toward his equipment. "The ship is isolated, but they'll run out of life support in 48 hours. We need to send a team." Melorn absorbed this information quickly. "You want me to join the response team?" It wasn't a question, but Kapoor nodded anyway. "Your experience with xenobiology might be crucial, but I have to warn you, the conditions will be challenging. The ship is damaged, environmental systems are failing, and the North Atlantic in winter is one of Earth's most hostile environments." "More hostile than this laboratory?" Melorn asked, attempting human humor. Kapoor didn't smile. "Significantly. We wouldn't ask if the situation weren't desperate." 6 hours later, Melorn found himself aboard a hypersonic medical transport racing toward the disabled research vessel. The response team included Dr. Kapoor, 2 infectious disease specialists, a neurologist, and a team of hazardous environment technicians. The vessel was testing deep-sea sampling equipment, Kapoor explained during the flight. They'd brought up samples from a previously unexplored trench approximately 9,000 meters deep. The neurologist, Dr. Emerson, added, "Initial reports indicate the affected crew members are experiencing hallucinations, tremors, and progressive paralysis. Conventional treatments have had no effect." As they approached the research vessel, Melorn observed the churning dark waters of the North Atlantic through the transport's viewport. Even from inside his enhanced hydrosuit, he could sense the deadly power of this environment. Massive waves crashed against the disabled ship, which listed precariously in the stormy seas. Landing on the vessel's helipad required extreme precision. Twice the pilot had to abort the approach when waves tilted the ship at dangerous angles. When they finally touched down, magnetic clamps immediately secured the transport to the deck. Inside the research vessel, conditions were chaotic. Emergency lighting cast an eerie red glow over the corridors, and the constant motion of the ship as it rolled with the waves made movement challenging even for the humans. For Melorn, it was nearly impossible without assistance. The ship's medical bay had been converted into an isolation ward. 28 crew members lay on beds, their bodies trembling uncontrollably, their eyes wide and unfocused. 2 more were in critical condition in an adjacent intensive care unit. Patient 0 was the lead oceanographer, the ship's doctor explained, her voice hoarse with exhaustion. He was examining a biological sample when he collapsed. Within hours, anyone who'd been in the laboratory began showing symptoms. Melorn approached one of the patients, scanning them with his specialized diagnostic tools. The readings were unlike anything he had encountered before. "The neural pathways are being systematically blocked," he observed, "not by physical means, but through a biochemical cascade that mimics the body's own regulatory systems. Dr. Kapoor reviewed his findings, like a biological hacker using the body's own communication protocols. Precisely, Melorn agreed. Show me the original sample. The sample was contained in a sealed pressurized chamber, a small fragment of what appeared to be coral-like growth, with unusual bioluminescent patterns. Melorn studied it carefully, his scientific curiosity overriding his physical discomfort. "This is not a terrestrial life form," he announced after several minutes of examination. The human doctors looked at him in shock. "Are you suggesting alien contamination?" Dr. Emerson asked. Melorn's skin patterns shifted thoughtfully. "Not extraterrestrial in the way you mean. But this organism doesn't share Earth's evolutionary history. My hypothesis is that it represents a completely isolated branch of evolution, developing in the extreme depths without contact with surface life for millions of years." "Is it sentient?" Kapoor asked. "Not individually," Melorn replied, "but it's displaying defense mechanisms that suggest a highly advanced collective intelligence. The neurological symptoms in the humans aren't accidental. They're a deliberate response to perceived threat." As Melorn continued his analysis, the ship suddenly lurched violently. Warning alarms blared throughout the vessel. "Hull breach in Section 4, came an announcement over the communication system. "All personnel evacuate to upper levels immediately." The medical team began moving patients, but it was clear they couldn't evacuate everyone quickly enough. Melorn made a rapid calculation based on the ship's structural integrity reports. "The breach is causing progressive structural failure," he told Kapoor. "This vessel will sink within approximately 40 minutes. The transport can't take everyone in one trip," Kapoor said, her voice steady despite the crisis. "And we can't move the most critical patients without killing them." Melorn's patterns shifted to a decision configuration. "I believe I can synthesize a neutralizing agent for the neurological symptoms, but I need more direct information about the organism's biochemistry." "What are you suggesting?" Kapoor asked. "My species evolved in an aquatic environment. While Earth's oceans are toxic to me in their natural state, my hydrosuit can be modified. I can retrieve additional samples from the trench." "That's suicide," Kapoor objected. "The pressure at that depth would crush your suit instantly." "Not if we reinforce it with materials from the ship's pressure chambers," Melorn countered. "My biology can withstand pressure variations better than human physiology. It's the chemical composition of Earth's oceans that poses the greatest danger to me, not the pressure itself." While the evacuation continued around them, Melorn and the engineering team worked frantically to modify his hydrosuit. The ship's deep-sea sampling equipment provided the necessary reinforcement, and the life support systems were augmented with additional filtration mechanisms. "This is still incredibly dangerous," Kapoor said as they made final adjustments to the suit. "If the filters fail, the seawater will dissolve your protective membranes in seconds. If we do nothing, 28 humans will die." Melorn replied simply. "The mathematics of the situation is clear." Before Kapoor could respond, the ship lurched again, more violently than before. "Structural integrity at 28%, came the automated warning. "Catastrophic failure imminent." With no time for further discussions, Melorn activated the modified suit and made his way to the vessel's moon pool, an opening in the bottom of the ship that allowed direct access to the ocean. The human technical team operated the winch system that would lower him to the sampling site. As Melorn descended into the darkness of the North Atlantic, he experienced a strange dual sensation: the familiar comfort of being surrounded by water, combined with the alien threat of Earth's ocean chemistry. His suit's sensors registered the rapidly increasing pressure, but his Valsian physiology, evolved for the pressure variations of deep ocean trenches, adapted more readily than human bodies would. At 9,000 meters, the only light came from his suit's external illumination. The seafloor of the trench revealed an ecosystem unlike anything known to surface science: bizarre creatures with translucent bodies, fields of white organisms that resembled both plants and animals, and sprawling colonies of the coral-like growth they had been studying. Melorn carefully collected several samples, including living specimens of creatures that appeared to have a symbiotic relationship with the coral. As he worked, he noticed that his presence triggered subtle changes in the bioluminescent patterns of the coral colony. It was reacting to him, studying him just as he studied it. The return journey to the surface was tense. Twice his suit's filtration systems required emergency recalibration as trace amounts of seawater penetrated the outer layers. By the time he reached the research vessel, warning indicators showed his suit integrity was down to 15%. The ship itself was in worse condition. Entire sections were now flooded, and the remaining crew and medical team had retreated to the bridge, the highest point of the vessel. Melorn delivered his samples to the makeshift laboratory they had established there. Working with incredible speed, Melorn analyzed the new specimens and confirmed his hypothesis. The coral-like organism produced a neurotoxin as a defense mechanism, but it was highly specific, designed to target the neural patterns of its natural predators. Human neural activity, with its unique electrical signatures, had triggered an amplified defensive response. Using components from both the coral and its symbiotic partners, Melorn synthesized a blocking agent that would interrupt the neurotoxin's action without harming human nervous systems. The first doses were administered to the most critical patients just as the ship's integrity dropped below 10%. "We need to evacuate now," the captain insisted. "This vessel is going down regardless of what we do." The medical transport couldn't carry everyone at once, so multiple trips would be necessary. The first evacuation took the most critical patients, with Melorn remaining behind to continue treatment of the others. By the third transport run, water was seeping onto the bridge, and the ship's systems were failing completely. Melorn and Dr. Kapoor were with the final group of patients when the ship's structure gave way entirely. The sudden lurch threw them against the bulkhead, and Melorn's already damaged suit suffered a catastrophic breach. Earth's seawater made direct contact with his biological membranes, causing immediate and severe chemical burns. Despite excruciating pain, Melorn helped secure the last patient for transport. As they lifted off from the sinking vessel, Melorn's systems began shutting down one by one. "Stay with me," Kapoor urged, working frantically to repair his suit and administer emergency treatments. "We're 10 minutes from the Institute. They're preparing your aquatic chamber with regenerative protocols." Melorn's communication patterns were weak and disorganized. "The patients, did they all? They'll all survive, thanks to you," Kapoor assured him. "Now I need you to survive too." The next 72 hours were critical. Melorn drifted between consciousness and oblivion as the medical team at the Institute worked to counteract the damage from his exposure. His natural regenerative abilities, combined with adaptations of the treatment he himself had developed for the molecular degradation case, gradually began to repair his systems. When he finally regained full consciousness, Melorn found Dr. Kapoor monitoring his recovery, dark circles under her eyes suggesting she had barely rested. "You look terrible," Melorn observed, his communication patterns showing a weak attempt at humor. Kapoor smiled tiredly. "You should see yourself." The crew of the research vessel, all recovered. "The neutralizing agent you developed worked perfectly. They'll have lingering neurological effects for a few weeks, but no permanent damage." Melorn's patterns showed relief. "And the deep-sea organisms? We've established a secure research facility to study them. Your theory was correct. They represent an isolated evolutionary branch, possibly separated from surface life for over 200 million years. The scientific implications are enormous." Melorn drifted quietly for a moment before responding. "I came to Earth to study humans, but I've ended up learning far more than I anticipated." "What do you mean?" Kapoor asked. "Your species evolved on what the galaxy considers a Deathworld, a planet so hostile that most civilizations would have been extinguished before they developed technology. Yet instead of being limited by your environment, you were shaped by it into something remarkable." Melorn's patterns shifted to a configuration that the translation system struggled to interpret, something between admiration and profound realization. You humans lack natural defenses, so you create artificial ones. You lack regenerative abilities, so you develop surgical techniques and pharmaceuticals. You face deadly environments, so you build protective systems. And when those systems fail, you improvise new solutions on the spot. Kapoor listened intently as Milorn continued. Most significantly, when confronted with the unknown, like those deep-sea organisms, your first instinct isn't fear or aggression, but curiosity. Even knowing the dangers, you explore, you study, you learn. It's extraordinary. We're just doing what we've always done to survive, Kapoor said modestly. That's precisely my point, Milorn replied. What other species consider your greatest weakness, your evolutionary compromises and adaptations to a hostile world, may actually be your greatest strength. You're not just surviving on a Deathworld, you're thriving because of it. 3 months later, Milorn stood before the Galactic Medical Coalition, presenting his preliminary findings from Earth. His body still showed signs of the damage he had suffered, but he stood proudly in an advanced new hydrosuit designed by human and Valsian engineers working together. In conclusion, he told the assembled representatives from across the galaxy, I believe human medical science, despite its relative youth, has much to teach us. Their approach to problem solving, their surgical techniques, and their pharmaceutical innovations offer new pathways for medical advancement throughout the coalition. An elder representative raised an objection. But humans evolved on a Class 9 Deathworld. Their physiology and the solutions they've developed are specific to those extreme conditions. How could they possibly be relevant to species that evolved in more hospitable environments? Milorn's patterns shifted to a configuration that his colleagues recognized as profound certainty. Because, esteemed representative, the challenges that shaped humans have resulted in a species that doesn't accept limitations. When they lack a natural solution, they create an artificial one. When conventional approaches fail, they improvise new ones. Their medical science isn't limited by their evolutionary history. It's liberated by their need to overcome it. He projected images of the Institute, of the research vessel, of the human doctors working tirelessly to save lives, including his own. I went to Earth to study humans as a xenobiologist. I expected to categorize their biological systems, document their limitations, and perhaps find applications for our own medical practices. Instead, I found myself questioning our very definition of biological advantage. Perhaps evolving on a Deathworld isn't a disadvantage at all. Perhaps it's the crucible that forges the most adaptable, innovative, and resilient species in the galaxy. As the coalition members debated his findings, Milorn reflected on his time on Earth. He had gone there expecting to be the teacher, bringing advanced knowledge to a young species. Instead, he had become both teacher and student, exchanging knowledge with a civilization that had turned their evolutionary challenges into their greatest strengths. The humans had a saying that Dr. Kapoor had shared with him. Necessity is the mother of invention. Looking at what humans had accomplished despite, or perhaps because of, their hostile homeworld, Milorn couldn't help but wonder what they might achieve next and how they might transform the galaxy in the process.